Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we will be talking about Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, and the theory is what it is so far, that Donald Trump has thrown out Epstein out of Mar-A-Lago previously. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com to get all of our latest video content, articles, blogs, interviews, etc. Sign up for our email newsletter right here. If you want to get a free ounce of kratom and maybe some CBD and support our partner and my work, check out My Brave Botanicals, and you can follow us on all the other social media platforms. And if you want to support even further, sign up for monthly support at patreon.com/Derrick Broze. So the title of this video is, Did Trump Ban Epstein from Mar-a-Lago? Number 2. The reason it's number 2 is back in December, after my documentary, I also did a video like this, where I explored these claims. And I'm not going to rehash everything I did in this short 11-minute video, and hopefully today's video will be just as short as that. But I am going to say that the main claim of this whole story comes from, James Patterson's book, Filthy Rich, which is all about Jeffrey Epstein. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But we're going to pick up where I left off last time, which is just this, that although James Patterson's book, Filthy Rich, is the main source of that, we still have not been able to find any conclusive information. In this interview of mine, which has been going viral lately, I interviewed the attorney Bradley Edwards, and he tells me that he also heard the same thing about Trump throwing Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago, but he has not been able to confirm that. And it's interesting to hear that because you'll see a number of different articles and claiming that Bradley Edwards filed documents, and there are court documents where he claims this same story. And it's interesting that he would claim a story that he himself said he wasn't able to prove. So, as I left it, this was just a claim, but this was all before Jeffrey Epstein got arrested. Now Epstein's arrested and things have changed. So let's re-examine that claim again in light of more recent news. Now, just this past week, this is what we heard regarding that claim. It said, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway said Trump had not had contact with Epstein in years and years and years. And like everyone else, he sees these charges, the description of these charges, as completely unconscionable, obviously criminal, disgusting, really. And then on Tuesday, Trump told reporters that Epstein was unavoidable, but he said, I was not a fan of his. That I can tell you. So this was Tuesday of last week. All right, so this is coming on Tuesday, and at the same time, we had this new report saying that Trump once hosted an exclusive party with Jeffrey Epstein as Mar-a-Lago estate. It was just the two of them and 28 young girls. This is being reported by a former Trump associate to the New York Times. He said women were flown in for a calendar girl competition that was requested by Trump. The former associate, George Haraney, told the New York Times. I said, Donald, this is supposed to be a party with VIPs. You're telling me it's you and Epstein? And he claims that he warned Trump about Epstein back in 1992. So let's just get a hold of what's going on here. Trump has known Epstein since the 80s into the 90s. This guy says that in 1992, Epstein and Trump host a party with 28 girls, young girls, calendar girls, models. It fits the MO for both of them being involved with modeling agencies, and Epstein recruiting girls through modeling agencies and through Mar-a-Lago and places like that. So 1992, the two of these guys are on good terms. By 2002, Vanity Fair writes their article with the famous quote that everybody knows about Trump saying that Epstein was a terrific guy. So from 1992 to 2002, they're friends. And they, let's imagine they continued to hang out with each other, maybe had more parties where there was 28 women and, nobody else. This picture itself is dated at 1997. So throughout the 90s into the early 2000s, at least up to 2002, Vanity Fair interviews Trump, and Trump still says Epstein is a terrific guy and that he likes the younger women. So Trump, let's just imagine he was aware of something. He may not have known that, Epstein was involved with all the pedophilia per se, but he definitely was aware. So it's hard to imagine he was just completely clueless. Then by 2009, according to Bradley Edwards, who I interviewed here, when he filed subpoenas, he says Trump was one of the only people to respond to those subpoenas and that Trump was more than happy to help. So 1992, they throw a party together. 2002, Trump still says he's a terrific guy. 2009, Trump is telling Bradley Edwards he'll help him however he can. Something happened between 2002 and 2009. Trump says the last time he had anything to do with Epstein was about 15 years ago, which would put it about 2005, which is right around the time whenever Epstein was first originally charged for these crimes. So, without speculating too much, I would just wager that if Trump did know what was going on, once Epstein was, caught up in it and it was clear he was going to be exposed, people like Trump distanced themselves. And then within a few years, Trump says, hey, by 2009, he's like, oh, I'm willing to give you whatever I can on this guy, either because he didn't like Epstein as he claims and because he knew Epstein was up to something nasty and dirty or whatever, or because he was involved in some way and he was trying to cover his own ass. Again, that's just speculation. There's also reports out there that Epstein and Trump had real estate deals going on in Palm Beach as well, and that some of those deals soured. So it could be that Trump really was upset at Epstein, but it was related not to him kicking him out because of some molestation or witnessing some girls getting picked up by Epstein from Mar-A-Lago, which is what has been claimed, but could have been related to other business deals, real estate deals. At this point, we don't know, but we do know now, according to one of Trump's old associates, that he attended a party where it was 28 young girls and just Jeffrey Epstein. So where does this claim come from that Jeffrey Epstein that Trump threw out Jeffrey Epstein? As I said, and as I explored in the last video, number 1 of this series, it comes from James Patterson's book, Filthy Rich, A Powerful Billionaire, The Sex Scandal That Undid Him, and All the Justice Money Can Buy, or something along those lines. And James Patterson is a fiction writer who decided to do like a true crime piece, and he partnered with 2 different journalists, John Connolly and Tim Malloy, to produce this book back in 2016. And this is the only section that even talks about it. So this is where the whole thing comes from, the whole claim. Trump says, whether they love me or not, everyone agrees the greatest and most important place in Palm Beach is Mar-A-Lago. I took this ultimate place and made it incredible and opened it, especially to the people of Palm Beach. Then it says, it cost $100,000 to join Trump's club. Members pay $14,000 yearly in dues. And although Epstein had never properly joined the club, Trump's friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell gave Epstein unlimited use of the facilities. So Trump's friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the handler, the woman connected to to Epstein that was helping him recruit all these girls. So how could Trump be aware of who Epstein was and be friends with Ghislaine Maxwell but have no idea what's going on? This arrangement ended when a member's young daughter complained to her wealthy father. While relaxing at Mar-A-Lago, she'd been approached and invited to Epstein's house. The girl said she had gone and Epstein had tried to get her to undress. The girl's father had gone directly to Trump, who in no uncertain terms told Epstein that he was barred from Mar-A-Lago. Because no complaint was filed, the police had taken no action. But Virginia Roberts, of course, the woman who accuses Prince Andrew and plenty of others, she says this is the way that she was recruited from Mar-A-Lago via Ghislaine Maxwell for Epstein. So that's it. Those couple of sentences there are pretty much where this whole theory about Epstein being kicked out by Trump come from. And as I said, I already asked them about it, and the lawyer said he couldn't confirm that. So it's in the book, but that's the only place. And that's where I pretty much rested last time. Now that Epstein has been arrested, all of a sudden, James Patterson, he's out there doing the interview circuit, and he's sharing what he knows. So check this out real quick.
Situation in 2006 when he kind of got off for 13 months. A friend of mine, Tim Malloy, who had covered the case down there, and that's a long time to be waiting. And then John Connolly, who was an investigative reporter who was involved with the Vanity Fair situation.
Right. Well, let's go back to the beginning, or at least when you started writing your book. You lived not far from Jeffrey Epstein in Palm Beach. Is that correct?
Yes.
When did you start hearing rumors?
Oh, no. I wrote the book. Look, this book was written in 2016. All this happened in 2006. I mean, the interesting thing, and God bless the Miami Herald, and God bless a senator from Nebraska, but pretty much everything and almost everything in the Miami Herald is in this book, right. Which was done 2 years earlier. And unfortunately, we just didn't get the traction that they've gotten right now.
Now, we did hear.
But that was it wasn't way back in 2006.
Right. Now, we did hear that today, apparently, President Trump had some sort of falling out with Epstein, but he didn't elaborate. We do know that he did kick him out of Mar-A-Lago at one point. What can you tell us about that?
Well, there are two incidents there. One was apparently there was a member and Epstein was inappropriate with the member's daughter. The other piece, and I interviewed a woman who would run the spa there, and I said, did you know Jeffrey Epstein? She said, oh, yes. She said, he used to come over to the spa, and I found him to be inappropriate with the girls, the young girls there. And she said, I went to Mr. Trump, and he threw him right out.
All right,
I mean, such as it is, and I'm not, we get the red and the blue here, and we'll go both ways.
All right, so you hear that. You see that he's talking about, he said there was a manager, there's a parent that complained, and Trump threw him out, right? So again, this claim coming from James Patterson's book. I thought it was interesting that this comes out on, Tuesday of last week. So on Monday, Trump says the first thing where he wasn't a big fan of Epstein. Then on Tuesday, James Patterson goes on TV reiterating this story about Trump throwing him out. And then you'll see here by Wednesday or Thursday, maybe even Friday, Trump says this again. So let's check this out real quick. Real quick. Yeah, here we go. Check this out. Taking just a second. Excuse me here. My point is you'll hear Trump directly address this.
Of Jeffrey Epstein. I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein. And you watched people yesterday saying that I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. That was many, many years ago. It shows you one thing, that I have good taste, okay? Now, other people, they went all over with him. They went to his island. They went all over the place. He was very well known in Palm Beach. His island, whatever his island was, wherever it is, I was never there. Find out the people that went to the island. But Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected. I threw him out. In fact, I think the great James Patterson, who's a member of Mar-A-Lago, made a statement yesterday that many years ago I threw him out. I'm not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
So it's interesting to me how he references the same interview that I just played you. He's like, oh, yeah, I think James Patterson just went on TV yesterday and confirmed this. So I don't know. To me, I find that a little bit odd that Monday Trump, he speaks about it. He says he wasn't a fan, but he doesn't mention anything about kicking him out, when I felt like that would be probably the most bold way to immediately distance himself from Epstein, is to say, yeah, I threw him out. It's only after James Patterson goes on TV and tells the story again that Trump does then come out and say, yeah, even James Patterson talked about this, I threw him out. Now, that could be nothing. And those of you who's accused me of having an anti-Trump bias, that's not true at all. I just want to make sure. I see so many people out there, and maybe some of you are the people that post this comment, no, Trump did this, and you do so without any clear evidence. And most of you are sharing out my interview as your backup evidence. But again, even if Trump did help the attorney Bradley Edwards by 2009, in 1992 he has a party with Epstein. In 2002 he gives the interview saying that he's friends with him. So between 2002 and 2007, the only thing that changed was Epstein got busted, and then all of a sudden Trump says he wasn't a fan. And perhaps then in that interim is whenever he threw Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. But based on his past comments and based on him being at a party where it's nothing but young calendar girls, you would imagine Trump was aware of that prior to that. So my speculation is that if Trump was involved, which time will tell, then this was his way of covering it up and starting to distance himself from Epstein. And I told you as well, James Patterson, who's given this interview, the author, he is also buddies with Clinton. He wrote a book with Clinton. He went on tour with Clinton. So he claims he hates Epstein, but he also claims that Clinton and Trump have nothing to do with it, and that he doesn't think there's any way that Clinton or anybody else knew about it. And I just don't buy that. But it's important to remember this, that James Patterson, he did this book that I show you here and here, Filthy Rich. He did this book with two other journalists because he's not an investigative journalist. And I mentioned that I was going to look into these journalists. And this is where we're going to just start to wrap this up. So one of the journalists who helped write this book, Filthy Rich, was a man named Tim Malloy, a journalist named Tim Malloy. And I've tried to find as much as I could about him. And there's not really, I didn't find too many details of Tim Malloy's life, but I did find a few key pieces that kind of show a bit about his work. Here's his LinkedIn page. It just says reporter at WPTV West Palm Beach. And in the interview that James Patterson gave on TV, he mentioned that the journalist had worked locally in Palm Beach. So that's Tim Malloy. Here he is, Tim Malloy leaving WPTV in 2010. Anchor Tim Malloy is leaving the station after 18 years for a teaching job at University in Connecticut. He'll teach journalism with emphasis on war zone work. He's been to 25 countries, and he was embedded in Iraq and Afghanistan, and he won awards for those stories. And here's one of him winning an award. Tim Malloy snagged sixth Emmy, for Aeromedical, a 28-minute documentary about air and medical personnel who rescue veterans. So he is a real journalist. He's an award-winning Emmy journalist who was based in Palm Beach, and he now is, apparently working with James Patterson. So that's who he is. Now, when I looked into the other journalist, John Connolly, this is where things get a little more interesting. John Connolly, former New York City detective turned journalist, contributing editor for Vanity Fair magazine, and currently finishing a book called The Sin Eater. And here's some of his articles that he wrote for the Daily Beast. They're all a few years back. There's nothing that's really that modern. So it doesn't appear that he's currently still writing, but he does exist, and he's written articles. He's written for numerous websites, Vanity Fair, Daily Beast, and others. But when you start to dig into him, I found this old article from 1990, New York Magazine, from 1990, an article called Other People's Money, the curious saga of the Wall Street broker who informed for the government while his clients' funds vanished. And you really got to read this story, but basically, John Connolly is formerly a Wall Street broker. That's him right there. It's the same guy, same picture before. He was formerly a Wall Street broker turned informant and then turned a journalist. This details how he got involved in financial crimes and then eventually was busted and started working for the federal government to help bring down other white-collar criminals. So one of the journalists who helped James Patterson write the book Filthy Rich on Epstein, which is the only main source for the story that Epstein kicked Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. One of the contributing journalists to that is this guy, John Connolly, who was involved in financial crimes and then was busted and then started working for the feds as an undercover informant, helping them bust other people. Then you go on digging a little bit deeper, and I found this. Some of you may recognize this name, Mark Rathbun, who, if you look him up, who is he? He was one of the top people, former senior executive of the Church of Scientology. You can find out all about him, Mark Rathbun. He left the Church of Scientology. He might be still involved, but he left. And in 2011, he wrote this article and releasing this memo talking about Vanity Fair contributor John Connolly, journalist John Connolly, how he was an informant working undercover for the Church of Scientology, basically tracking down ex-members of Scientology and keeping tabs on them. You can read into that. Yeah, so I mean, this guy, he's got a history of working undercover as an informant for the government. There's some evidence indicating that he was an informant, a spy for the Church of Scientology. You can find more in this article here from The Observer. We'll see if it pops up. It asks, was a Vanity Fair editor secretly working for the Church of Scientology? I recommend reading both of these pieces. All these links will be put below, but there he is again, asking about this former NYPD detective, stockbroker, and then a journalist, and then also potentially a spy for the Church of Scientology. It's worth reading through all of that. And then there's also this from journalist Luke Ford discussing the history of John Connolly. He apparently in the past was facing lawsuits and getting some heat from Arnold Schwarzenegger for writing an article on Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was, debunked by all kinds of different people, and just, he's been labeled a liar. This is one of the guys. He's got false stories about Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's been called a liar by some of his own peers. He was accused of being a spy for the Church of Scientology. He worked as an informant for the government. He is basically a white-collar criminal, and this is one of the journalists that are on the Filthy Rich book claiming these things about Donald Trump throwing out Jeffrey Epstein. So you decide if you want to trust these guys. As I said, that's one of the guys, John Connolly. The other one, James Patterson, he is a career fiction writer, but he's also friends with Bill Clinton, claims that Bill Clinton and Donald Trump knew nothing about Epstein, and he's done a book tour and written a book with Bill Clinton. And then the other journalist is this Emmy Award-winning journalist who I really couldn't find anything, dirt on Tim Malloy. But yeah, that's just the case. And as I said, you have to add that into the context of this newly reported story about Trump and Epstein hosting a party with 28 young girls, model calendar girls. And that's how we're going to end this. Did Trump ban Epstein from Mar-a-Lago #2? Still, since December when I first was asking this question, now that Epstein is arrested, we still do not have definitive evidence. Some of you will say, yeah, Trump denied it. That's all you need to know. But that's not proof. James Patterson going out there and reiterating that. That's not proof. Trump claiming that again. It just seems so well-timed for me. So I don't know. I know some of this, you guys are like, what the heck? This is a totally weird rabbit hole. It's not directly related to Trump. It's related to the people. It's not directly related to Trump or Epstein, but it's related to the people that are around them, Epstein and Trump, both having some association with James Patterson as well as Bill Clinton. And he is out there speaking up, saying that, this is what he knows. And the reality is that lots of people knew. These people, these powerful people who are associated with Epstein, they weren't around him completely ignorant or blind, especially those like Trump who said that he was known for having a predilection for young girls. Like, people were not blind. So take that into consideration. That's where I'm going to leave it for right now. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And if you want to support us, please keep tuned to this channel and to theconsciousresistance.com. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.